serving God on the job, serving God through work. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt. And I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. If you're like most Christians, you want to serve God to the best of your ability. You want to serve Him every day, right? You want to read the Bible. You want to apply biblical truths to your day-to-day. You want to go to church. You want to tithe. You want to speak to other people about God. You want to do all those things that the Bible teaches us and commands us to do. But what about on the job? What about when you go to work Monday through Friday or whatever your work week is? You go to church on Sunday, maybe you go to church also on Wednesday evenings, but then the day-to-day gets in the way of serving God. Then the day-to-day becomes a distraction from even thinking about God. And you think, well, how do I go to work? How do I go to my secular job and still serve Jesus? So before I get into all of that, I want to mention, if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, at Real Life Network, which is the faith-based news outreach of Pastor Jack Hibbs in California, his church. You should go there. You should go to RLN, Real Life Network, and check out all their podcasts and all their video shows and all their faith-based news offerings, because it really does shine a light on the dark news that we're just flooded with day to day. It helps keep you steady. It helps keep you stable. It helps make sense of all the chaos. You can also get Bold and Blunt at WashingtonTimes.com, where you may subscribe to my 3 times a week Bold and Blunt newsletter. Just scroll to the newsletter section, linked at the bottom of the page, the WashingtonTimes.com page, and find Bold and Blunt with Cheryl Chumley among all the newsletters that we have there, and enter your email address, and you'll get my podcast delivered along with my commentaries right to your email box 3 times a week. One more quick mention: you can get Bold and Blunt wherever podcasts are available, and I'm trying to remember, because my publishers want me to remember to do this. My latest books, my nonfiction is called God-Given or Bust: Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths. My fiction series is Chloe's People. That's the name of the fiction series. The first book, Chloe, has been available for some time, but I'm happy to announce the second book in the series, Hector, just came out this month. You can pick both of them up through my publisher, Fidelis, or of course on Amazon, wherever books are available. How can I serve the Lord through my ordinary job? This is a posting at Nashville Institute for Faith and Work, and it was from 2023, but the principles don't change that much, right? And so, it's an interesting read, because wherever you work, whatever you do for a job, if you're a Christian, you're always trying to look for those openings, those opportunities to represent Christ, right? Or just speak about Christ. And it's really difficult in the day-to-day rush that becomes life, right? So let me read a little bit from this piece. We can point people to Jesus. How can we serve the Lord through our ordinary jobs? 1, point people to Jesus through our works and good deeds. 2, participate with God as His co-workers to meet people's needs. And 3, bring God's presence into every sphere of life. So those are 3 ways that this organization suggests serving God through your work. Number 1, we can point people to Jesus. I'm reading from this page. In the parable of the sower, right? The Bible story, okay? In the parable of the sower, the farmer sows his seeds, and you can go to Matthew and read this yourself. We understand from Jesus's explanation later that the seed is the good news of the kingdom of God. We always seem to focus on the kinds of soil that the seeds fall on, because that is Jesus's main point. Remember, in that parable, the different the different types of soil that the seed fell on. Some was hard. The dirt was packed so hard the seed couldn't take root. Some was so soft that the seed rooted. The seed fell in deep, but it was too soft really to sustain it for long. And the rains came and washed it away. So that was the point of the parable of the sower and the different types of soil. Back to this page now. However, do we ever consider how the farmer sows the good news? Perhaps the farmer, reading from this again, sows the seeds of the gospel through ordinary Christians like you and me. So that goes to that first bullet point. Point people to Jesus through our words and good deeds. And if you just represent as a Christian without worrying about evangelizing and quoting the Bible and all that, if you just represent as a Christian and you live your life as a good Christian, sooner or later, somebody out there who comes in contact with you is going to want to know, what is it that makes you like you are? How do you stay so in peace? How do you stay so focused? How do you achieve this? How do you seem so level-headed? And how do you maintain, joy, or how do you maintain cheerfulness? And then there's the open door, right? So when you just represent, you point people to Jesus, right? Through your words and deeds. Participate with God as his co-workers to meet people's needs. That's point number 2. I would say, without even scrolling down and reading that means charitable outreach, right? You see people are hungry, you feed them. You see people need, a ride because their car broke down, you provide the ride. You see people need a shoulder to cry on, you provide the shoulder. They don't have to be these big ticket items to be charitable outreach. It can just be something small that crops up in your day-to-day life. And depending on how that outreach goes, it could present an opportunity to talk about Christ, to talk about Jesus, to credit God with whatever is going on in your life that allows you to do that charitable outreach with a cheerful attitude. And the third one, we can bring God's presence where it is needed most. Reading from this, God gives us this cultural mandate to subdue the earth. We are called to build this alternative city. What does it look like when we have healthy families, when we have biblical views on business and economics and law and politics? We've redeemed all that instead of letting Satan, the power or the prince of power, just drain the life out of them. These things belong to God. Economics belongs to God. Politics belongs to God. Family belongs to God. Medical science belongs to God. God created science. So we go into this culture and say, quote, "This is not yours, Satan. This is not yours, world, flesh. This belongs to God. And I am a representative of his kingdom here to demonstrate what it looks like when a redeemed person enters the workplace and says, 'This belongs to my God.'" All that is reading from nifw.org, this website that I've been reading from. And I would also say the media belongs to God, right? The news outlets, the news organizations, the media, the press, reporting, all that belongs to God. So, if you're a Christian, whatever you happen to work in, just think of it as working for God. Your employer signs your paycheck, but in the end, your work, your endeavor, your outreach, all belongs to God. Every effort you do on the job, on the clock, is for God, and really because of God. And it's interesting to me that if you look at the whole model of America, right, materialistic success, the capitalistic system, and achieve and grow wealth and get rich, that it sort of takes the focus off working for God on the job, right? It's really easy in this country to seek the materialistic definition of prosperity, of prosperous, and forget about the spiritual component of prosperity, right? We should all be seeking spiritual prosperity, not materialistic prosperity. But in this country, this whole, race to achieve, race to get the most toys before we die, get the most money, have the biggest houses, get the most cars, send our kids to the best school, have the most padded 401k and IRA and all that. The race for all that just sort of dominates in America culture. And that's not to say America's not the best, and America doesn't have the best economic system in the world, because I believe truly in the capitalistic system. I love the free market because I think it does go hand in hand with developing the skills that God gives you at birth and using them to bring in, to usher into your own home and family materialistic wealth and economic prosperity. But those things should never become the number one drive, right? It should always be God first, and then as God blesses you and uses you, one of the outcomes, one of the blessings is is economic prosperity. So it's always God first, and right, materialism, money, all that second. But America sort of puts the pressure on drive, succeed. That's a hard one to say 3 times in a row, right? Be the best you can, be a celebrity, do this, be a star, get fame and wealth and all that. And so I love it when somebody at the top of whatever field they're in, they're famous, they're a celebrity, they're a star, they're well known, they're the best of the best, or they're among the best of the best. I love it when they reach such heights in this physical world and yet don't lose sight of the crucial importance of the spiritual world. They still, in the face of all their fame and glory and success and materialistic gain, they still put God first. And I have a guest today who has done just that. You may know him if you're a basketball fan. He plays in the NBA for the Orlando Magic. His name is Jonathan Isaac, and he's here today on Bold and Blunt to talk about how he has brought God into the arena of the NBA and has successfully continued, even in the face of all his athletic success and no doubt financial gain, still manages to put Christ first. Jonathan Isaac, I want to thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. So great to have you here.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
It's very exciting for me and for my listeners to hear from somebody who is in a celebrity-driven field, and they want to talk about the Christian faith. So you, as a Orlando Magic player, you've just started this new Christian apparel organization or store. What is Christian apparel, first off?
So we offer Christian apparel and Christian footwear, where there are visible Bible verses on the outside of the shoes and on a lot of the clothes, or there's a Christian saying on the clothes. And for me, what it represents is a touch point. It's a touch point that keeps me connected to Christ in my thoughts, and in my everyday life when I'm picking out my clothes, or right now I'm wearing a t-shirt that says Faith Department, and every time I glance at it or I see a reflection, it produces a thought in me about my faith. And I think that also is an anchor to keep us on the right track, to keep us thinking on things that are pure, good, lovely, of right report, etc. And then also it's a touch point to other believers. When I see a friend of mine or my wife wearing a Unitas t-shirt or Unitas shoes, it produces a level of camaraderie or togetherness between us on that level of apparel. And so I think it's an amazing touch point. That one, it keeps me encouraged. And one of the big things about the brand is that even though we have verses on the shoes and the clothes, a lot of people will think, oh, this is mainly for evangelism, but that's not our identity with it. yes, it can be used for evangelism, but the main goal is for it to be a touch point for you, the one who's wearing it, to remind you of the faith that you hold, to continue to persevere, to strive, and ultimately to continue to grow.
And the very name of your company is very clever. Unite Us, Unitus. Who thought of that?
That was my pastor. And so,
Excellent.
we've got a funny story. I back in 2020, I got injured. I tore my ACL, and I was a Nike signed athlete. So I was getting paid by Nike to wear their shoes, and I got injured, and Nike decided not to re-sign me. And I went to my pastor and told him about it, and said, "Hey, when I get back from injury, I'll probably go with a different company." And he said, "Why don't you make your own shoes?" And that's ultimately where Unitas was born. And we had a conversation, and he said, "I think you should name it Unitas," and that's where we went from.
I love that. And, just in a couple minutes listening to you speak, you have a very humble mannerism about you, the way you speak. Is that something that you credit to your Christian faith? Or, I mean, how can you maintain humility in the face of your career, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's a little tricky for me. I would say that most people would describe me as humble, but knowing myself, I know that it comes from a place of honestly just being what's the name? I forget the name of this. You said it in the beginning. You said
Bold and blunt.
bold and blunt. Being blunt, it's a level of insecurity on my part. I definitely deal with a level of like imposter syndrome and just not necessarily. Most people are like, oh, this is Jonathan Isaac, he's this, that, and the third, and I'm like, please stop. And so yeah, so I would say that it definitely it definitely is informed by the faith, because I don't want to think of myself more highly than I ought to. Like Paul said, but I think I do that already on my own to myself quite a bit, and so it makes that easy. But at the same time, there's also a level of that pride that just comes with the position that I'm in, that I have to be wary of as well.
That's interesting you say that about imposter syndrome, because I think just being self-aware of that would make an individual like yourself more usable by God.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen that for sure. I could definitely corroborate that.
Okay, so let's talk about the genesis of your company, because I'm not familiar with how long it's been out there. When did Unitas start? Is it a lone endeavor, or do you have a team behind it? Just talk a little about that.
Yeah, thanks so much. So it started, I want to say last year, August. So we are about, we're going to be heading into 2 years this August, and so it's been awesome. It started out with just me in the beginning, but I'm glad to say that we built a team over time with a CMO and a president and the whole nine like that, and it's been great.
And most of the people that you play with, that you associate with in the NBA, how have they received this company, and how have they received your Christian faith, your openness of your Christian faith?
I would say it's been balanced. There are definitely people who see it as, what's the word, in terms of like, just not being able to work because at the end of the day, there are real economics, and, it does take quite a bit of capital, and it's not easy. Just starting a brand, period, is not easy. You have to grow brand awareness, and people have to get on board and believe in the brand and believe in what the brand stands for. And so we definitely have our work cut out for us, and it's been tricky at times already. So I think there's a healthy skepticism about, being able to do this on my own. And, some people may see that as egotistical or prideful or conceited with trying to create this brand on my own. But at the same time, I've had great conversations, and even in the games, I'll be at the free throw line, or I'll be standing close to the sideline, and a player from the opposite bench will go, "Yo, I really like what you're doing with your shoes," and I'll be like, "Yo, I'll send you some." And so I've had quite a bit of conversations of players coming up to me mid game and saying, "I love what you're doing. Keep going," and they want to see it be successful.
Oh, that's amazing. And you said a minute ago that you've already had to deal with some tricky things. What sort of situations have been tricky in the launch of this brand?
Yeah, for sure. I think just ultimately you don't know what you don't know, and getting into the place of starting an apparel business, there are hurdles, right? There is lead times, and sometimes what you want isn't in stock in terms of being able to order it, or a certain color, or even just manufacturing mishaps. With shoelace not being right, or this not being right, or that not being right, and having to go through those hurdles, and kind of being in this on my own for the beginning, that those things cost, and
Right.
so we've had to deal with that, and but we've continued to grow the brand awareness, and more people are getting hip to what it is that we're trying to do and what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and are falling in love with the idea of being able to wear their faith as a touch point for themselves, and also as an evangelism tool. And so it's been good.
Were you raised as a Christian, raised in a Christian home? What's your background in that, if you don't mind talking about
Yeah,
it?
no, of course. So I was raised in a Christian home, but it was for us growing up. It was very traditional in a sense. So we grew up in a kind of Baptist Pentecostal household, and we had to memorize whole psalms and scriptures and whatnot to recite them in church. And what that did, one, it gave us a healthy understanding of the word, in terms of having to read it, and just kind of those small nuggets get embedded, but not a complete understanding of what all of this means. What does it mean to be in a relationship with Christ? What does it mean for God to send his only son to die on our behalf, and to want to do life with us, and to glorify his name through us, and to sanctify us, and justify us, and all these different things? I didn't have an understanding of that growing up. It wasn't until I got to Orlando, really until I got to the NBA, that my pastor now was able to walk with me through what all of that means and what all that looks like, and where I truly could say I became a believer.
Has your faith, would you credit your faith as keeping you on sort of the straight and narrow as you navigate this world of celebrity lifestyle?
Oh, for 1,000%. To be bold and blunt, if I wasn't a Christian, if I didn't have faith, I would have been um, lost multiple times over. Just looking at the way that I operate. Period. Even with some of the hurdles that I've had to endure, I've been through quite a few injuries that one would set somebody back for a really long time. And even I've had injuries that happen kind of back to back to back, that I've had to endure, and that if I didn't have my faith, if I didn't have my pastor, my church community, my family, my wife, I wouldn't have made through it. So absolutely, I'm the man I am today because of Christ, and I'm still here, still kicking because of it.
So, is your Christian apparel company, Unitas, the long term vision after basketball? This is what you want to focus on, or is this a stepping stone to something even more that you already have planned?
I would say both. It's definitely something that I think is going to be, the main, possibly the main thing in my life. I feel that somewhere deep down inside of me there is a uh, possibly, I don't want to go on record saying anything, but possibly a yearning to deliver God's word in the form of preaching, or starting a church somewhere. I could see myself doing that. I would say I could see over time, a guy kind of bringing that out of me to do that at some point with my wife and our family. I would say I also have visions of Unitas being something that expands past apparel, and possibly starting a Christian university, a Christian high school, and things like that through the brand Unitas, and just being able to take it into different directions, but ultimately with the same fabric of a touch point for Christians, between believers and Christ.
And just to finish up with this, if somebody's listening right now and they're not really a believer, or they don't understand how Christ works in the day to day of his believers, what
Yeah,
would you tell them?
man, I would tell them. So I had a conversation with my little brother. So right now I'm up at Florida State. It's where I went to college, and I'm here training. And my little brother came to spend some time with me here, and I was riding in the car with him, and pretty much just felt like it was a time that I could share. And I said to him, being an NBA player and having access to excess, and being able to get whatever I want, and go wherever I want, and do whatever I want. the one piece of advice that I would leave with him is that Christ is the only thing that satisfies. And because I've been able to indulge, I've been able to, like I said, get what I want. I've noticed and recognized that the world has nothing to offer in terms of substance and internal fulfillment and joy and peace. And I think that all of those things are things that we strive for in our everyday lives. We think that the money is going to bring peace. We think that the prestige or being valuable in other people's eyes is going to bring a sense of fulfillment and joy, and it doesn't. And I've experienced that everything that I have in my everyday life that I hold dear to, my family, my sense of identity, my sense of worth, my sense of, internal peace. And it fluctuates. I'm not perfect at all, by a long shot. Christ is continuing to work on me with it. But those are the things that I hold dear, and I know that they're only because of him. And so I've seen myself grow as an individual in how I see myself and how I see others and how I see the world and how I operate on a day-to-day basis, simply because I've tried my best, and at times have failed in submitting to the supremacy of Christ and allowing him to lead my life.
Wow, what a tremendous message. And Jonathan, it's been great speaking with you. Where can people check out Unitas and purchase their own Christian apparel? Excuse me.
Yeah, thank you. No worries at all. I mess that up all the time typing. It's weareunitas.com. Unitas is UNITUS. So you go to weareunitas.com, where they can check it out on Instagram if they go to my page, Jonathan Isaac, and it's all over my page.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and God bless.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thanks so much.
I love that. Unitas apparel, not apparel. The word is apparel, but check it out. It sounds like such a great idea. Keep close to Christ every time you look at your clothing in the mirror, or somebody in your family is wearing the clothing and you look at the Bible verse. It just makes you think of Christ. Like I said, what a great concept. I want to thank you for listening. Remind you, if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, at Real Life Network, at WashingtonTimes.com, and of course, wherever podcasts are available. Tune in next time. In the meanwhile, don't forget, stay blunt, stay bold.